Hi, good morning. Welcome to the Build. So, I am excited today to make an announcement to you. I am going to begin a series of video interviews with professionals who are currently in private practice. And the reason behind that, right, is because I've seen that you can have all the steps, all the information, all the knowledge, all the tools, and still be stuck, right? And sometimes that stuckness comes from not having the info or needing more time, right? Just the build that happens with time. But also sometimes it comes from your own emotional stuff, your relationship with money, what money meant to you growing up, what it meant to your family growing up. Is it okay for you to charge for the service that comes out of your mind and your mouth, right? So I really want us to take some time and think about that emotional component. And I want you to think about whether or not you have specific hangups, things that you're concerned about, guilty or negative feelings about money. Are you viewing money as a tool that's useful, or does it have meaning? Does it make you a good person or a bad person? So, that's why I'm going to pull in this video series of these interviews so that we can kind of look at and think about that aspect of this work. Okay, terrific. So today's question is from Brandy. Brandy says, I currently have an LLC for my life coaching business. I would like to have a private practice that encompasses both counseling and life coaching. Can you help with that? So my answer is yes, absolutely, Brandy. I can help with that. So one of the first things I think is really important is to know the difference. Some therapists, offer life coaching with the idea that it's kind of like a softer version of mental health therapy. And there are some really clear and distinct differences that I think it's important to think about while you're planning your business. The first is, you know, looking at these different services. So, life coaching and coaching in general is very goal directed. There are steps, there's a plan. There are sometimes check in calls during the week, check in calls between assignments. You're allowed to socialize with your clients. You may host an event for or with your client, right? That's very different from therapy, from a mental health client, right? The mental health client is there for support. Whether it's emotional, whether they have a mental health need or issue, whether they have a family or a relationship struggle, whatever it is, they're there for support. You may provide psychoeducation. Your relationship with them and the way that you interact with them carries a great deal of meaning for them and can be one of the things that helps them to heal and to grow as a person. So socializing is out of the question, right? That therapy room is like this magical space that you do not breach in any way. So you can't socialize with them outside of therapy. There are very strict laws around having a dual relationship with your client. Someone who's your client, no matter how much you think that they're amazing, can't become your friend, can't become your spouse, can't become, all these different things in your life. They're a client. They've come to you for that role, and that's where that stays. Now, of course, there are some, exceptions to this, right? So if you're part of a specific community, if you are, whether it's a racial, ethnic, other cultural community, whatever it may be, if you're part of a smaller community where you would naturally run into this client, then you have that discussion with them ahead of time, like, hey, I know I may run into you at whatever event. I may see you in the community. We live 2 blocks away from each other. Do you want me to greet you? Do you want me to not say anything to you? What are you comfortable with, right? So even when you are part of a specific community or a really small town, right, where that's bound to happen because there are only 200 people in the town, you're going to see each other. You have rules around it. You talk with them. You find out what their expectations and wants and desires are around that. And you also plan accordingly. You go to supervision around that. You could consult with me about that if you have that specific issue come up. So there's a lot of thought put into what that relationship looks like outside of the therapy room, where it's not the same with a coaching client. With your coaching client, you may charge fees up front, right? You may say, okay, 10 sessions and we're gonna have you here, right? You pay for your 10 sessions up front. You're not gonna accept insurance for a coaching client, right? Whereas with a counseling client, you likely go session by session. They may pay a session up front, but they're not going to pay every session up front. You may use a sliding scale. You may accept insurance. So there are some clear differences to really want to make sure you're thinking about while you're going into this. And it's also going to affect the way that you advertise the service. So what are the specific services you're offering these two distinct groups? And remember, they are distinct groups. And finally, I just want to say it's really important to make sure that you actually have some form of life coaching training. Again, you don't want to go into this with any sort of blurry vision. These are very clear and distinct categories of client, and you're going to have completely different actions based on what client they are. Okay. So I hope that that was helpful, Brandy, and I will see you soon.